Welcome to AutoHunter.com vintage car online auctions. I'm here with the owner of this 1964 Opel Kadett A, Scott. I figured today we're going to have a conversation with Scott about his car, tell us a few things about this particular Opel, his history with this Opel, maybe some Opel facts. If we get some Opel knowledge flowing here between the two of us, we can have a little learning session here for everybody. So, welcome, Scott.
Hey, thank you.
So Scott is going to be selling this 1964 Opel Kadett A on the AutoHunter 7-day auction platform. It will go live with a date that will be listed below in this video. So AutoHunter.com, if you're interested in buying this Opel Kadett, that's where to find it. If it's already been sold and you're watching this later on, then continue watching for some education. So Scott, welcome again. Thank you for bringing out this 1964 Opel Kadett. I love these. You obviously love this car. It's not common. We're going to learn some cool things about it here. It's a German car, sold in America through an American car dealer in a weird kind of twisting of automotive companies. General Motors has European divisions that don't sell cars here, one of which is Opel. However, Opel didn't always not sell cars here. Starting in the late 50s, early 60s, they started to sell this Opel Kadett, kind of as a competitor to some of the other smaller German cars that were coming out. So, Scott, this particular car is a first-generation Opel Kadett. It's a 64. What year did these cars first start being sold here?
And they started being sold, the Kadett, around 1960, and it was the A model.
Excellent. So obviously we had an A, B, and a C eventually, right? And I think all three generations were sold here. You don't see many of them on the road anymore. So even in 1964, or when this car was brand new, it wasn't a common car on the road. Do you know how many Kadett A's they sold?
There was around 250,000 that they imported into the U.S. before they stopped.
That's a bigger number than I expected, to be honest with you. But in retrospect, the competition, say, a Volkswagen Beetle, would have been significantly more. So I guess that's why we don't see many Kadetts on the road anymore. American car buyers at the time didn't really have warm, fuzzy feelings about most foreign cars. So I don't think GM advertised these as foreign cars. They didn't have Opel dealers. You went to a Buick dealer, correct, to buy an Opel?
Yes, you went to a Buick dealer, so it still retains the Opel badge. So an Opel name that goes across the front of the car, and the Opel badge that's on the trunk.
And that Opel badge today, actually on European sold cars, is still pretty similar. It's like a circle with almost like a lightning bolt through the middle of it. Very cool history. They've kept doing that. So unfortunately, they don't sell them here. They have sold a couple of Opels here recently, or more recently, badged as Saturns. There was the Saturn Sky and the Pontiac... Nope. Names escaping me on video here, but there's a Pontiac convertible, Pontiac Solstice, and the Saturn Sky that were convertibles based on an Opel Roadster chassis. So they have sold a couple Opels here, just not on the Opel name for quite a long time. But this car here, you have not owned it its whole life, obviously. You bought it later on in its life, and you restored it from a state where it was sitting for a long time. Can you tell us a story of how you got into Opels, or at least this Opel, or where did your fascination for this car come from, or if not, fascination for Opels in general, this particular one? Where'd this car come from?
That's a good question. So this car actually was my neighbor's car. It was her first car. She bought it in 1964 as her first car, and she drove it from Atlanta to Phoenix. She was a Juilliard music teacher, and she bought it because it was a competitor to the VW Bug. It was something that was advertised as you can sit upright in all four seats, and it had a big trunk, and it had more horsepower than the VW. But when I laid my eyes on it in the late 90s and talked to my neighbor about it, she filled in a lot of information. I was really stoked by pointing out it was a competitor to the VW Bug. And she says, absolutely, but it wasn't something that she was willing to part with. It had basically sat in her driveway for almost 30 some odd years.
And she couldn't drive it anymore? That was the issue? Or it was just not running anymore, or both?
Well, she stopped driving it, and eventually it stopped running because of the lack of love. So it was basically baking in the Arizona carport all those years, waiting for somebody to give it some attention.
Which is your job now, to give it some attention and make it run and make it pretty and move it on to its next caretaker. We don't like to call it owners, call them caretakers, because when a car's made it this long in life, you don't expect to drive it until it's done and in the junkyard. You expect to drive it sparingly, lovingly, enjoy it, show it to others, and move it on to its next caretaker. So that's a very cool thing with old cars, is that it's kind of like art. You know, you don't buy an original piece of art to hang in your living room and throw it away when you move. You buy it to display it and show it and move it on to the next generation of people. So interesting enough, you're now ready to move on with this car, move it on to its next buyer. So I can't wait to see what the next person does with this car. The fact that she drove it from Georgia to Phoenix is a heck of a feat in a small horsepower, small displacement, tiny little car like this. And I can't imagine doing it today. I would love to try it. It'd be fun to drive it across country, I think. It would be a much slower trip than we're used to, but it'd be a lot of fun. But kudos to her for driving this thing all the way across country, because it is not a big car. And the interstates at the time probably weren't as car-friendly as they are now. So very cool story.
I do take it across the interstate right now. I could get up to 70 miles an hour, and it does just fabulous and get a lot of head turning.
And in today's climate, it probably gets decent gas mileage too.
Fabulous gas mileage, almost 30 miles to the gallon.
Which is impressive for an old car. Most people driving old cars don't drive them much right now because they get, 10 or 15. But a vintage car that gets 30 miles per gallon, you can enjoy it and use it. That's kind of fun. So what kind of condition was the car in when you got it, Scott? How much is original? How much has been restored? Sheet metal, trim, engine, anything? What's new? What's old?
So the entire car is in real good condition. The part of the car that had to be replaced was the trunk floor, because that was pointed towards the back of the carport, so it got the weather.
Okay.
So that was cut out and replaced. But everything else in the car, the aluminum strips, or what they call chrome strips, all that is all original on the car. I replaced the interior completely, including the carpet, the upholstery. The door panels I didn't replace because they just need a little love, and they cleaned up just fine. And electrically, it still maintains its 6-volt charging system. There's a list of many things that I've replaced or repaired or had rebuilt. The generator has a brand new armature in it, brand new distributor. Everything's been resealed. The radiator's been pressure tested, along with the heater core. The heater fan works. Everything is in really good shape for this car.
Excellent. That's glad to hear. So anybody who drives this car next can get in it, turn the key, and enjoy the old Opel ownership. And I'm sure people don't drive by this car and ignore it. It must get looks and smiles and thumbs up and also a what is it a lot. You probably get a lot of people going, what is that, at gas stations and whatnot. The Opel Kadett has had a little bit of fame lately, though. I don't know if anybody watches the Top Gear show, but one of the hosts of Top Gear has a Kadett A that he bought in, I think, South America. And he fell in love with the car so much that when the taping was over, he shipped it back to England and restored it. So if you look that car up, there's a little bit more story about that car called...
It was in Africa. I saw
Africa,
that one,
yes.
and it was fabulous. It was the thing that made it across Africa when 100%. All the other cars failed.
Yep, and he did it with style as well. And I think Richard Hammond is the guy who kept it. And he calls it Oliver, and he restored it, and he posts pictures of it all the time with him and his family using it. So you could be like a Top Gear host if you drive an Opel Kadett like this one, right? So,
absolutely.
Very cool car. Super stoked that you're listing it with us. Super stoked that you came out to talk to us. We're going to get some additional footage of the car moving so people can see it in motion. And that's about it. Thank you for coming. Excellent chatting with you.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add in the end, or are we pretty much all solid here?
The paint job was color matched back to its original color. We actually used a local paint company here in Arizona called back to Germany to make sure we had the exact color right.
Excellent. Sounds like they're probably used to Volkswagens, right?
Uh-huh.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, again, Scott, thank you for coming out, and we'll chat with you later on, and we'll chat with you guys next time we do a video.